Hey, we are a team from Astana University, the group Asia 2518, and for our history of Kazakhstan midterm, we didn't just read only articles online. We actually went to the National Museum of Kazakhstan to research our topic, and our topic is about Kenesary Kasymuly, the last Khan of the Kazakhs, and the leader of the biggest anti-colonial movement in our history.
Before we start, we asked one main question. Was Kenesary's movement the last attempt to restore the old Kazakh Khanate, or was it the first real national liberation movement in Kazakh history? To answer this, we used three main sources. First, the classic book by Yermukhan Beg Mahometov about Kazakhstan in the 1820s and 40s. Second, the real letters of Kenesary himself. And third, the Russian chapter on the Siberian Kyrgyz from 1822, the law that started everything.
So, who was Kenesary? He was not just a warlord, he was the grandson of Ablay Khan, the last ruler of the United Kazakh Khaganate. This gave him a real loyalty legitimacy. In 1822, the Russian Empire passed a law that destroyed the power of Kazakh lands. Russian forts started appearing everywhere on Kazakh land. Kenesary's family tried to write letters to negotiate, but the empire ignored them. So, in 1837, when he was 35 years old, Kenesary picked the sword, and only in 4 years, by 1841, all free Kazakh Jews recognized him as their Khan. He became the last Khan of Kazakh history.
The most interesting part is reading what Kenesary himself wrote. In his letters to Tsar Nicholas I, he doesn't ask for independence. He says something smarter. Give us back what you already promised. My grandfather Ablay Khan, our autonomy, our Khan. No force on our land. He was basically saying, I'm not a label, you broke the contract first. But Russian officers wrote about him completely differently. In their reports, he was called a bandit and a Munir, same man, same year, two completely different realities. This was not just a war of weapons, it was war of two different ideas about what law even means.
But Kenesary wasn't the first Kazakh to fight the empire. Before him there was Sremdatov and then Isatai Taymanov with the poet Mohammed. So why is the Kenesary most famous? Srem fought for 7 years, but only the generals. Isatai and Mohammed only 2 years, a local operation. But Kenesary 10 full years of the united officially Khan on his own courts, his own army. There was no rebellion anymore. This was a parallel state, and at the same time, on the junior side, Imam Shami was doing the same thing in the Caucasus Mountains. Same decade, same enemy, same idea. Kenesary was Shami of Kazakhstan.
Welcome to the 19th century hall. You know, people often expect to see a million artifacts here, but nomads didn't build stone castles and wars, destroy what little is left. However, history isn't just about the number of objects, it's about the stories behind them. And there is one specific paint here and explains Kenesary's entire war.
Aisha, why is Akhmarin's fight is so famous?
Because it wasn't just a random target. Look what's happening here. The Russian Empire was building a massive chain of military forts right across the Kazakh steppe. And this specific fortress, Akmolinsk, was the build exactly of the traditional summer pages, the J-Law, of Kenesary's own clan. You have to understand how nomads lived. Their forts weren't just buildings. They were physically cutting off accident migration routes. And for a moment, if you lose your migration route, your livestock dies and your economy collapses. So when Kenesary's army attacked Akmolinsk in 1837 and literally burned it to the ground, it wasn't just mindless destruction, it was a targeted political message to the empire. You are choking out the way of the life, and we were dismantling your colonial infrastructure.
Following up on what Aisha said about the battles, look at these weapons. This is what Kenesary's Sarbas warriors used: traditional sabers, lances, and bows. They were masters of
cavalry tactics and surprise attacks. But you can't fight a 19th century empire with just courage and swords. The Russian army was bringing in regular artillery, heavy cannons, and modern muskets. The fact that Kenesary managed to hold off a modern imperial army for 10 whole years using nomadic hit and run tactics is absolutely insane. But ultimately, this technological gap was one of the main reasons the movement couldn't win.
But war is only half the story. Look at these traditional items. This is what the war actually about. Kenesary wasn't fighting against force. He was fighting to preserve the entire nomadic universe. The Russian reforms of 1822 didn't just change laws. They were destroying the traditional power structure, the land ownership, the very core of Kazakh society. Standing here among these everyday objects, you realize this wasn't just a rebellion, it was a desperate fight for identity and survival.
But 10 years of constant war exhausted everyone. In 1847, Kenesary made a fatal decision. Pressed by Russian forces from the north, he moved his army south into the lands of the Kyrgyz. Historians still argue, was he looking for a safe haven and new allies, or was he acting like aggressor? Either way, the Kyrgyz Manabs refused to submit. In the Battle of Keklik-Singer, Kenesary was surrounded, captured, and executed. The empire didn't defeat the last hand of the battlefield. He fell in a tragic local conflict between neighbors.
So let's go back to our main research question. Was Kenesary the last Khan of the old steppe or the first leader of a national liberation movement? Our conclusion, he was a bridge between them. He fought to restore the old traditions, but to do it, he created something completely new. A new centralized state with a regular army and taxes. He was ahead of his time. Without Kenesary's resistance, there would be no Alash movement in the 20th century, and without them, no independent Kazakhstan today. History is completely connected, so thank you for exploring it with us.
Thank you for your attention.